tell me I'm the only one that you love. Life could be a dream, sweetheart. Hello, hello again. Shaboom, hello, let me get on. Life could be a dream. If I could take you up in paradise above. If you will tell me I'm the only one that you love. Life could be a dream, sweetheart. Hello, hello again. Shaboom, hello, let me get on.
Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to the very first episode of Tubetalk. I hope you enjoy it. This is a new piloting series over here on Tekken 2021. Rebooted the channel recently, so I thought, well, I've been meaning to do it for a while. I've been meaning to make sort of a bi-weekly news show about the Tube. And what a perfect time. Anyway, we've got a lot of things to talk about today, so jumping right in with our first story. The Houseland City and Circle Line went on strike on Thursday the 15th of September. Reading the RMT statement, they say, following an overwhelming vote for action by RMT drivers on the Houseland City and Circle Lines, and a failure to reach agreement in talks held through ACAS right up to the wire yesterday, the union has confirmed this morning that 24 hours of strike action will go ahead from this evening. This, of course, being written on the 14th of this month. Now, drivers were instructed not to book on for any shifts that begun after 9:30 on Thursday the 15th of September until 9:30 on Friday the 16th of September, which meant that the strike affected service basically from evening on Thursday the 15th of September to end of traffic on the Friday. The RMT claimed that the dispute is over heavy-handed and aggressive management and cite the fact that staff are being put on stopwatch timers for their toilet breaks, as well as agreed policies and procedures being ignored by certain managers. RMT General Secretary Mike Cash stated, "This dispute is about the basic issue of protecting working conditions of our members and defending agreements from attempts to drive a coach and horses through them. The management are out of control and the anger at their failure to follow procedures has boiled over. This breakdown in industrial relations should never have been allowed to happen, and if agreements and procedures had been adhered to from the off, the package of issues at the heart of the dispute could have been resolved through the joint machinery. The union remains available for serious and meaningful talks." This is taken from the RMT London Calling website, and as we know, the dispute is currently still ongoing as of now, a week after the strikes. My personal opinion on these strikes is a bit mixed right now. It seems very focused on the Hammersmith depot, and even though RMT balloted all 240 members for strike, only around, I believe, no more than 60 of them actually voted, and I believe it was 2 of them voted not to strike, and the rest of them did vote to strike. So even though there was overwhelming vote for the action, there was not much voter turnout amongst the drivers. So take that however you want. I think this issue could have been resolved through continued talk at ACAS. We haven't really heard much about it. This was a very surprise sort of strike. TfL and the RMT announced it pretty much only a week before it actually happened. I know that TfL only started posting up their banner notification on the TfL website around about a week before it happened. So the public really did not have much warning towards the strike, and I think it could have been handled a little bit better. Although, if the claims the RMT are currently making are true, then, to be honest, TfL, what the fuck are you doing? Or should I say, these managers, what the hell are you doing? Because putting people on a timer or a stopwatch for toilet breaks is heavy-handed and insane. However, I have heard claims from TfL that a lot of people are putting down toilet breaks clocking in at over an hour. Now, if this is true, fuck the staff that are doing this. But then again, I do know TfL for fabricating and lying and over-exaggerating about certain things. So while I am certainly a bit mixed on the situation, I am going to side with the strike action. The RMT aren't my favourite union. I'm more of an ASLEF kind of guy, but I can see the reason for the strikes if the claims that are currently being made are true. So, in summary, there was a 24-hour strike on the Thursday, the 15th of September, and the dispute is still apparently ongoing. Moving on to a much more light-hearted topic, every single advert in Clapham Common Station has been replaced with a photo of a cat. Now, this is a campaign by the Citizens Advertising Takeover Service, which stands for CATS, who started a crowdfunding campaign to raise enough money to replace the standard adverts, just the usual poster adverts that you get, of course the full platform spreads that we can't get, with photos of cats. Why do they want to do this? Well, they believe that we are being pushed into purchasing choices far too commonly by pushy adverts which are taking advantage of our subconscious, etc, etc. They also believe that cats will look amazing, which it does. I've actually personally been there and had a look around. As well as the fact that all the photos of cats have actually been taken from a shelter. So these are all cats looking for a new home, which is really, really cool. They've been taken from Battersea Dogs and Cats Care and Protection Centre, which is obviously in Battersea. So yeah, if you get a chance, head on down to Clapham Common Station, where you can sort of have a look at this very peculiar, weird site. The people who are behind this are volunteers who raise the money using Kickstarter, a very prominent crowdsourcing website service. But I don't think it's been used for anything like this in the past. So obviously, very, very interesting, very funny, should we say, as well. Sort of, how can I put this? Light-hearted topics. So yeah, they raised £23,000 with Kickstarter to plaster Clapham Common in cat advertisements. Anyone who wishes to donate £23,000 to me, I will happily plaster Clapham Common with adverts for milk. Yes, milk. Moving swiftly onwards, it has been revealed that the worst London Underground station for pickpocketing is King's Cross St Pancras. This is a report that has come out last week, and amongst the list are the aforementioned King's Cross, Oxford Circus, Victoria, Liverpool Street, Stratford, Bank Monument, Leicester Square, Holborn, Green Park, and Euston stations. It's sort of been a given since the Tube's inception that theft and crime and pickpocketing are a risk you would take while entering the Tube, and it's fair to say to people, especially tourists, that you need to keep your wits around you while you're in this environment. Do not keep valuables on display, especially if you look like a tourist. You know, if you've got massive heavy bags, or if you're speaking a foreign language, or if you've got a I Love London t-shirt on, it's a given that you don't want to leave a stack of £50 just sort of hanging out of your back pocket, or your mobile phone on prominent display in a pair of skinny jeans. You also want to keep your bags near you at all times and keep them completely zipped up, and if you have anything of value in there that you were concerned about, use a combination padlock on your zips. It's also a given, please do not go to sleep on trains unless you are certain that you're not going to be pickpocketed, and if the worst comes to the worst and you do have to go to a sleep on a tube train for whatever reason, keep a physical grasp of your mobile phone device and keep your bag either behind you or on your lap. And once again, this comes that King's Cross is the most likely station for you to get pickpocketed. The British Transport Police have once again advised people to stay vigilant and keep an eye out for any other pickpocketers. And of course, you can report any incidents to the British Transport Police or any London Underground station staff, etc, etc. Make sure you keep a hold of your tickets as well if you use paper tickets, because a lot of people are nicking those and then reselling them, which is still a bit of a problem on the London Underground right now, where people will resell a ticket that they've either tricked someone out of or stolen to a unsuspecting tourist, anything like that, by standing at gates or standing near the ticket machines and offering them for cash money. Obviously this is fueling crime syndicates, etc, etc. Another story which sort of ties into this is the increase of tissue beggars on the London Underground. If you do not know what tissue begging is, it is sort of a way that beggars will use to mass collect money on a London Underground train. The idea of it is tissue beggar, they will try to attack not during the morning peak, but during sort of the inter-peak times where there are free seats on trains. And what the tissue beggars will do is place a small tissue packet with a written note, usually handwritten or printed, down on a seat next to you, which will be some kind of sob story, such as saying, I am homeless with 2 children, this is my only source of income, etc, etc. It's actually pretty common that they won't even speak to you, they will just place it down next to you, and asking you to buy this packet of tissues, etc, etc. Now when they say buy, they mean give them some money and they will let you keep the tissues. This is a scam. The idea of being given material goods increases the likelihood of anyone actually giving them any money. It's sort of a psychological trick. And actually, when push comes to shove, a lot of people will give them money and then decline taking the packet of tissues. This is sort of a bit of a scheme that's going around right now, and you should ignore the tissue beggar, or have a word with the driver if you're up front. If you get a ticket of beggar operating on your train, then what you should do is, once you get off that train, if they're still operating on your train, then you should just give your driver's door just a small tap and just let them know, and they will play the beggars and buskers announcement, which will hopefully get them to go away. A very well-known sort of area for tissue beggars right now is between Finchley Road and Wembley Park during the inter-peak times, mainly because Finchley Road to Wembley Park is a very long stretch, so they can get on the train and they can do the full length of the train in that time. Other stretches include obviously Hammersmith to Acton, which is another long stretch of the tube. Not so much is Chesham to Chalfont, which is another long stretch, and also the eastern end of the Piccadilly line up by sort of Cockfosters and Honors Grove. So while you may feel guilty and you may feel inclined to give these people money, please don't. It actually funds crime syndicates as well as sort of drug operations, etc, etc. If you do see any beggars, my advice, if you see a beggar on just in the street or anything, I tend to try and give food, like a packet of crisps or something like that, because I know it can't be given. It's not money, it can't be spent on drugs, etc, etc, but you're still helping them out because you're giving them food. So if they're genuine, then they win because they get food, and if they're not genuine, then they lose out because they don't get money to invest in drugs or anything sort of weird, stupid, or illegal such as that. So yes, sort of. That's the best thing to do. So report it to the BTP or a London Underground member of staff. In other news, on the 19th of September, a person was unfortunately hit and killed by a London Underground train at Bethnal Green Station. The victim was pronounced dead at the station and on the scene. Police, paramedics and 2 fire engines were dispatched to the scene. But unfortunately the victim, as I said, was pronounced deceased shortly after. There's been sort of a rise in one-unders, which is a person under the train, throughout the last few years. It's becoming a bit more of a increased issue, unfortunately. This incident not being currently reported as suspicious. It's very rare that a person under a train is suspicious. It's usually sadly an accident or sadly once again a attempted suicide. People need to try and remain vigilant. If you see one increasing issue right now is people not paying attention. Obviously with introduction of Wi-Fi on London Underground network, people are more and more buried in their phones, which is absolutely fine if you're sat back on a seat or at least stood a good couple of meters away from the platform edge. If you're on a rush hour platform and it is crowded and you are right up front, right next to where the train pulls in, right at the tail wall of a station, it would be advised as common sense not to use your mobile phone or read your Evening Standard. Also be aware that there are people behind you, and if you feel the situation is becoming unsafe, that there is too much pressure, do your best to move back and alert a member of station staff because they can close the platform or implement non-passing trains until the station slowly clears out. So just be careful. Obviously we did have some incidents with Pokemon Go and stuff like that. Never trespass on the railway, whether it be for a camera shot if you're a train spotter, or Pokemon Go, or to retrieve a lost item. That's another incident, or possible incident. Retrieving lost items from the track, never do that. Just alert customer services on the London Underground. Most occasions they will be happy to retrieve the item from the track for you there and then. If not, they will retrieve it out of service hours and return it to you then. And if they can't, if it's the middle of the rush hour, they can't retrieve it realistically because you've got a train operating every 2 minutes. So they will either wait until the rush hour is over and they can hold off the trains for a little bit, or they will just wait until the end of service. But this comes as a warning from me not to trespass on the track at all, not to lean over on the track. We had that unfortunate incident last year where someone, of course, on the Northern Line leant over to pick up a briefcase off the platform edge. They had a briefcase next to them. They leaned over to pick it up as the train was pulling in, and they got whacked in the head by the Northern Line train, and unfortunately passed away shortly after in hospital. So just a bit of a general reminder to try and just stay vigilant and aware on and around the railway, not just London Underground. So yeah, it's a bit of a somber note there, but moving on, this is a very interesting bit of news right here, because a local investigative report into the Canning Town evacuation, which happened quite a while back actually. It was on the 26th of May. A passenger got their foot caught between a train and platform at Canning Town. Staff and emergency services did attend, but a recent report is criticising the response of being uncoordinated because of lack of staffing. This is apparently what a leaked report that has been seen by the BBC and RMT has said. The paper states that recent staff changes meant that a certain control room was not staffed, which led to emergency services not being able to be coordinated from one central point as they usually are. The woman was trapped for about 15 minutes during the morning rush hour, and the Jubilee line was suspended for that period of time. The RMT claims that the incident spiraled out of control. Prior to certain changes, control rooms on the Jubilee line were staffed by an assistant who could coordinate the emergency services and also liaise with several other control centres at the same time. The report now says that TfL had failed to carry out post-implementation review to see if there had been any problems following the changes, and the RMT is currently pushing for a review in the changes. General Secretary Mike Cash said too many jobs have been cut, and what we are left with is a tube system that cannot properly respond to emergency situations. I am calling on London Underground to bring forward a planned one-year review of their new staffing arrangements. Steve Griffiths, London Underground's Chief Operating Officer, said, "The safety of our customers is always our top priority, and staff were on site within seconds to help the customer. The emergency services were also called within minutes to resolve the situation as safely as possible. Thankfully, incidents of this nature are extremely rare at Canning Town, and as our report makes clear, we are carrying out a full review." I find the wording of this quite interesting. He said the emergency services were called within minutes. Now, minutes is quite a long time to be unspecified. You know, we can say 10 minutes is minutes. So I would have been a lot more comfortable if they actually said how quickly they were called. Even 3 minutes, in my honest opinion, is too long. They should have been realistically called within the first 120 seconds that a alarm had been pulled and the situation had been assessed. Okay, so let's have a look at what actually happened here. The train had to be lifted with machinery to get this woman's foot out. and apparently the passenger was trapped for 40 minutes. I'm getting conflicted information here. Some say 15, some say 40. The station was closed to avoid overcrowding, and the line was suspended for a short period of time between Stratford and North Greenwich. At the time, TfL stated that their staff were present along with the emergency services to help the passenger and resolve the situation as safely as possible. Very large queues and overcrowding formed at Canning Town while the incident was ongoing, and the London Ambulance Services said it treated the woman for minor injuries, so we can safely assume that they made a full recovery. The RMT head office has said that they have seen a draft of the report into the PTI incident, which apparently contains quotes such as, "With the control room at Canning Town being understaffed, there was no central base for communications to flow in and out of, and station classification led to low numbers of staff being present to manage an emergency, as well as the current operating model does not match customers' demand or resourcing levels." So we can see once again that the RMT is, of course, taking, I wouldn't say taking advantage, but using this to push for more staffing, as you would dutifully expect from them. Whether the RMT is going a bit over the top here is not for me to debate, but they have made demands to London Underground to fold one, bring forward the 1 year Fit for the Future review, Fit for the Future being the operating procedures and standards that London Underground pushed for and adopted nearly a year ago. Fold 2, restaff all control rooms. Fold 3, address training crisis, as the RMT puts it. Fold 4, suspend displacements until the RMT have agreed a transport policy based on members' preferences. Fold 5, provide additional staff to meet demands of coverage and provide safe staffing levels. Fold 6, which is interesting and we'll come back to, reopen ticketing offices. And Fold 7, make all current customer service assistants to customer service assistants class 1 and abolish the fictitious role of CSA class 2. Now going back to this reopen ticket office, this helps us move on to our next story. London Underground ticket offices closures are actually about to be reviewed by our new mayor, Sadiq Khan. He has reportedly said that London Travel Watch, an independent watchdog, are now going to take a look at the impact of the closures, particularly on disabled users, including sight impaired, wheelchair bound, loss of hearing, etc., etc. The closures were agreed under the previous mayor Boris Johnson. I was heavily opposed to them. They were announced at the same time as a night tube as a way to save money, which went to paying for the night tube. It led to a lot of strike action by unions. As you remember, last year was a bit of a miserable time for us commuters due to a large amount of strikes. The TSAA has welcomed the review and said that closures have done nothing to improve passenger services. They stated that they have endangered passengers' safety by causing dangerous bottlenecking on stations, especially at peak times, diminishing services, especially for disabled people, and made the tube a less user-friendly place to travel. He also added that putting customer services staff on platforms had increased pressure on the tube network, as well as made it a less safe place to work, citing their worries about assault on staff because they had been moved out of course, ticket offices with glass behind the windows out onto the public concourse. The first ticket offices closed back in February last year. This was part of a TfL plan to save £50 million annually. While announcing the review, Mr. Khan said that millions of Londoners use stations across our transport network every day, and it is vital that everyone feels safe and gets the right support and information they need when travelling around our city. With the launch of the night tube and continuing modernisation of London's transport infrastructure, we particularly need to ensure disabled people get the right assistance when they need it and make sure no one feels unsafe around our more quiet stations late at night. So this is kind of hinting that stations will maybe have more staffing at night at ticket offices, instead of perhaps bringing the whole ticket offices back to life, unfortunately. So our main hopes right now as commuters are the crunch point stations such as Victoria and Green Park, where many tourists use the stations, will have ticket offices reopened, because I know one of my main experiences is while we, the usual user who can use a ticket machine very easily, want to top up, there are large queues heading back because there are a lot of tourists who do not know how to operate our ticket machines, trying to use them, causing delays for us people who are standing behind them, very frustrated, just waiting to be in and out of a ticket machine in 20 seconds or less. I know I've been on sort of the not receiving, the giving end of that in the past. It's very annoying. Talking about disabled passengers, TfL trialing a baby on board style badge for disabled passengers. The badge is a very simple design. It has a blue background with the words "Please offer me a seat" written boldly in white with a London Underground roundel underneath it. This is aimed for Londoners with hidden disabilities that may need a seat but can't communicate that to other commuters easily because their disability cannot be seen. I've one in favour of these badges. They're being trialled next month, and hopefully we can refine the design to make it easier to recognise. There are currently advertisements around London Underground stations with information on the badges so that the regular commuter does know how they work. About 1,000 of them are going to be available when they go on trial. This comes after a very successful run of Baby on Board badges, which launched several years ago. More than 300,000 people a year use them. So it seems like a bit of a necessity that we bring in these badges now, and I commend TfL for finally doing it. So, that, for now, concludes Tube Talk this week. I really hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. I've been your host, Amari Anthony. Please do leave a bit of feedback down below in the comments. Let me know what you think about this, and let me know how it can develop. If you are currently watching on the video on demand, you can tune in to the next episode, which will be on the 7th of October at 8 PM GMT time. Otherwise, the VOD will be going up as per usual on Monday the 10th if you do not watch it live. Thank you very much for watching, and ta-ra!